a team with a lot of diverse opinions is more creative and more efficient, more productive. If you don't trust that your boss is going to support you when you take a risk, you're not going to take a risk.
We we can't be perfect. You're right, and yet many of us have built up a belief that we have to be perfect or we're not doing our job or we're going to get fired or whatever other undesirable outcomes.
Quote, be yourself, everyone else is taken.
The more we use AI to prompt ourselves versus giving us the answers, the more we're able to augment each other. This idea of prompting AI to prompt ourselves is really enlightening. Fresh insights into what it means to lead today. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you are feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead in the crazy world today. Joining me is Ross Smith, who is a bazillion things. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. He's author of AI Revolution in Customer Service and Support, and also of AI in the Classroom. He's a co-founder of the Future World Alliance, where he is helping educators learn how to use AI responsibly. And where I met Ross, he has been at Microsoft for a very long time and is one of the people there who I always appreciated knowing and spending time with. Welcome, Ross.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. Thanks for including me.
I am so happy to do this again. We'll see if we can get through it without my browser crashing this time.
All right.
When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything that you do might be a valuable approach?
I think you learn a lot over time. A few moments stick out to me. In particular, I remember. I have a computer science degree. My first job out of school was in county government. Then I worked for a couple of startups, and then I got a job at Microsoft. And I remember the first day getting a whole set of new clothes, getting all dressed up, and I came in and walked in, and it was like a college campus. Everyone's wearing shorts and t-shirts, bare feet. I'm like, wow, okay, this is different. I kind of like this, right? And so that was sort of a aha moment, like, hey, that you take away the costume, but the person remains. And I've always felt, in leading different teams and working with people that, work is just a small component of life. And so if you think about hobbies that people have, or families, friends, activities, sports, there's a whole world of things outside the workplace. And sometimes, very often, those things intersect. So for example, I like to paint on the side. And so that, while my day job doesn't necessarily involve graphic design, I have that background and have an opinion. Now, it may not be the best in the room, but a team with a lot of diverse opinions is more creative and more efficient, more productive. And so really allowing people to bring their full selves to work really makes for a better place to work, right? People are more relaxed and they're happy and they don't have to be on stage. But also you get things coming out of the woodwork that you never realized about people. And I can't tell you the number of times you're like, someone, I remember one woman that I worked with was, she was kind of struggling in the role she was in. And having some problems and stuff. We had a sort of a skip level one-on-one, and she was telling me how she's her one of her friends' husband is a CEO of some large tech company, and she was kind of doing part-time work as his admin and helping him with strategy and things like that. And the dichotomy between those two, like, okay, wow, she's in the wrong role here because clearly if she's capable of doing these other things, and from that time we moved her around and she was much more effective, in new ways that never would have come up without understanding sort of her full self. And so I think that's a benefit that the organization and the teams get when people are allowed to express themselves, whether it's through what they wear, what they do, what they talk about. I think that's a important component of a strong team.
I love that story, Ross. It shows so succinctly how the hole we stick someone into may not be the right fit for them. And if we let them open up and express who they actually are, we may find ways that they can serve us, work with us, help our team and company much more productively than if we had tried to make them fit into that box or kick them out because they didn't fit it.
Exactly.
When you started that first day at Microsoft, showing up dressing the way you thought, and then everyone else is dressing a different way, how did you know? What told you that you were seeing them without a mask versus this was just a different mask than you were used to seeing?
Yeah, it was really the first time in my professional career that people weren't dressed up, that they didn't have on a suit and a tie, or at least the shirt and a tie. And, at the time, this was 1991, Microsoft was established, but not, as large, obviously, as it is today. Um, but it was so starkly different than anything I'd seen before. And really, it resonated with me like they must be successful. This is a component of the success, by allowing people to really focus on their work. And I, came to learn quickly it went well beyond dress. It was work styles, it was hours. Some people came in at noon and worked till midnight. Some people came in at 6 and worked to 6. And that freedom and flexibility allowed people, to bring their best selves. Like, okay, I'm a night owl, or I'm a morning lark, and I can adapt my work schedule to meet what I feel I need. And so I think that often gets overlooked. As you say, people try and fit people into a box, and sometimes that works, but often it is a box because it constrains. And if you remove some of those walls and ceiling, people could do things that well beyond you anticipated.
As you were removing those walls for yourself, and as you went up through your leadership journey, helping other people remove walls for themselves, what most surprised you about that process?
I think how what an effort it took to convince people that this was authentic. That as people would say, "Well, what should I do?" Well, what do you want to do? Choose your own adventure. What do you think we should do? And that makes a lot of people really uncomfortable. Especially coming from a rigid world of, okay, here's a red, yellow, green scorecard, and here's how I'm measured. To have that freedom to choose your own adventure is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and it's not for everybody. And so convincing people, and this goes into a lot around building organizational trust, freedom to fail. If you think about the behaviors that precede innovation or an innovative team, those are things that are rooted in trust. We talk about freedom to fail. Well, if your boss yells at you if you do something wrong, you don't have a freedom to fail, right? If you don't trust that your boss is going to support you when you take a risk, you're not going to take a risk. And so showing up and being authentic about, hey, yes, you can go choose your own adventure and I'll support you no matter what the outcome, right? And convincing people, and it takes time. It takes, for a medium-sized team, it probably takes 2 years to develop that level of trust where you really know, okay, this is authentic. This is the real thing. I can do my own thing. I can express myself. I can bring my full self and not have to worry about it at review time or performance evaluation time.
When you say medium-sized team, how many people are we talking?
I'm thinking 50 to 100, which may be large in many cases. But I think, smaller teams, it's easier because there's more interaction, so it goes more quickly. If you have a team of 10, it might take 6 months, but where you have multiple layers, it does take time for people to understand and live the culture.
How do you demonstrate that trust across 100 people?
I think it's, I always go in with the assumption that, okay, statistically there's 5% of the organization doesn't like what I stand for. All right. And I don't know who they are, but just statistically that's the case, right? And so my goal is to say, okay, well, that may be true, right? Just because the math says it's going to be true, but I want to make sure that those 5 people at least know me and are deliberately choosing not to like me, as opposed to not liking me in the position or me as the figurehead. And so really spending some time doing one-on-ones with people, even large teams of 300-400 people, I'll go and I'll spend, now it takes a year to get through everybody, but to spend just a half hour and get together with people and just meet, introduce myself, explain who I am. And so when they hear things, on stage or in a broad email, there's a human to back that up. Right. And so that's a big piece. And similarly working through each layer of management to make sure that, that people are comfortable giving feedback. Everyone's style is slightly different. And so, I had a great example the past year or so where I would do skip level one-on-ones and people would ask me questions and I would kind of answer off the cuff. And the manager who was in between me and those people just sort of gave me a little warning to say, remember he's around and that he's also trying to direct. And so not to make sure that the people aren't answering to 2 different bosses. And that was great, great advice, great feedback for me. It's something that I hadn't thought of, but I have to create the culture where they feel comfortable speaking up and saying something, and making sure that if I'm wrong, I say, yeah, I'm wrong. You're right. That's a great point. And you don't see that out of every leader. People feel like you have to be the leader, you have to be perfect. And you're much better off not being perfect and leveraging the strength of the team collectively versus trying to do it all yourself.
We can't be perfect. You're right. And yet many of us have built up a belief that we have to be perfect or we're not doing our job or we're going to get fired or whatever other undesirable outcomes. What helped you get through however much that you had and get to where you are now with the level of comfort that you have and the ability to be wrong in front of people that matter, both up and down your reporting structure?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the big things is to look holistically at life. Like, how do you show up in the world? How do you show up in your community, with your family, with your friends? People, accomplish a lot of things in life. Work is one small component, of that. The challenge is that a lot of people take that as the only component, and their entire identity is wrapped up in their job, in their title, in the company they work for. And when that changes or when that doesn't go perfectly, it can be crushing. But if you build and spend time uh, defining yourself in the world, then it matters less. The stakes are lower because you know you have these other things that you can count on. And again, there's lots of different ways to do this. You can go be a social media, influencer, or you could, you know, make hobbyist films. You could play in a band. You could, go out with friends, play. I was gonna say intramural, play sports on the side, and really think holistically about your life, so that work is not the only thing. I think that's a big piece of it because you know that okay, if I say the wrong thing or make a mistake, people know they know about me as a human, and they know my intentions, they know my family, they know my interests, and they know that I may make a mistake, right? And I think it lowers the stakes of that. Otherwise, it's like that pressure to be perfect every time it's unsustainable.
So there's two parts here then, or at least two parts. One is having activities outside of work where you may feel less pressure to be perfect and more opportunities to explore, try new things that you may not feel safe doing at work. And then the other, what that then brings back into work is opportunities to talk about how you were imperfect outside of work that lets you bring that imperfection back into work in a safe way because you're not saying that you had to be perfect or that you were able to be imperfect at work if that's not a safe thing to do. That you're able to show that you have been imperfect in other ways, and so then people can start extrapolating that, oh, maybe he isn't going to be perfect at work either all the time, and maybe that means I don't have to be perfect all the time either.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's important to, particularly as the leader, to acknowledge that you're not perfect. That hey, that I may have a lot of ideas. Feel free if I say the same thing two times to ignore it. But if I say it three times, I probably believe it, and let's talk about it. But if you want to just ignore the first two, please do, because they're probably wrong, or they may be wrong, right? Or they might be good ones. I don't know, right? But just because I have a particular role doesn't mean the words that come out of my mouth mean any more than the ones that come out of yours, right? And that's uh, it's an interesting work dynamic because the collective strength of teams is much better than any individual. There's maybe some rare exceptions, but those are probably more mythology than actual reality. But when you have a diverse team that can contribute a multitude of variety of ways, that's going to be better than any individual. Even if the individual is responsible and they have maybe the deep technical knowledge to know a specific way of doing things, or I've personally figured out how to map the human genome and no one else on the team knows how to do that. You have that case, but where do we apply that, right? Or how do we make that cost effective? Or how do we make our customers happy with that? Those things the team can contribute so that the final solution is best. So instead of, me taking my technical ability, let's say, and assuming that that makes me an expert at customer needs or at user interface design or at pricing models, that's not true, right? And I have one strength and I'm in a role because of that strength, but that is just one strength of many strengths that the team needs.
Indeed. So you, I understand how we can do this for people reporting up to us in the reporting structure, and for peers across the structure laterally from us, of demonstrating that we're imperfect, demonstrating that when they take risks and it doesn't work out, we still have their back, building that trust. How do you build this trust up the chain where, in my experience, many of those leaders are going to have all the same fears? I have to be perfect. I have to know all the things. And yet you don't have the same ability necessarily to go and meet with each of them one-on-one, to have the to have their back in the same way, so that to help them experiment with things.
Yes. So I think the thing that comes to mind there is build your personal brand. Oscar Wilde has a great quote: "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." And as you think about your position in an organization, uh, you want blue ocean. You want to be adding value that no one else does, and so your brand helps broadcast that message. So if you know, I do this a lot of times. I'll ask people, okay, you know enough about me that whether you're aware or not, you're familiar with my brand. And if you had a task where you needed help, you had two tasks where you needed help. One was to do income tax work in a spreadsheet, and the other is to brainstorm new product ideas. And you could choose me for one of the two. Which would you choose? Now that's my hope, my belief is that you're gonna make that choice based on my brand. And I won't put you on the spot, but I'll say you'll probably pick me to help brainstorm new product ideas. And that's exactly what I'd want you to pick. And that's what my brand reinforces. And so in a broader organization, I could probably go 4 or 5 levels up with leaders who know me, ask them that same question, and they'll give the answer I want. Right now, it's important. Another great quote from a Seattle bus driver: "Never get too good at things you don't like to do." You don't want your brand to signal things that, we all are capable of doing many things. I can do taxes in a spreadsheet. I don't enjoy it as much as I do brainstorming, but I can do it. So I could very well position my brand to be that. I would not enjoy the work that I'd get. Whereas if you position your brand around the things that you enjoy, you're going to be better at them. You're going to get more of them. You're going to attract more of that type of work, and your career will grow. So I think it's important, especially early in career, to really think, and maybe it's a case of try a lot of different jobs, try a lot of different things to really understand what do I enjoy, what don't I enjoy, and then start to develop your brand. And it goes everything from your email signature to the picture you use in social media or in email, to language you use, to how and where you work, how you dress, like everything about it is going to speak to the value that you want to add for an organization. And I really believe that makes a big difference in both in career advancement, but also in work satisfaction.
Do you balance positioning your brand versus anti-positioning all the things you don't want to do?
So I think we all get into positions where, okay, this is not something I enjoy. It's something that's very difficult for me to do, but I have no choice. There's no one else who can do it. And so I think it's important to not take this too far, right? That there are going to be things that you don't enjoy doing, you don't like to do, that you just have to do. But you can reinforce your brand by saying, oh yeah, that was really hard for me, or I'm not good at this, or hey, check my work because this is not my strength. I much prefer A, B, and C to this. So you could use the times where you're given work or are forced into doing things that you're not as happy about by saying so. Similarly, when you do something you like, oh, thanks, Michael, for the invitation to brainstorm. This is one of my favorite things to do. Right? And just reinforce that over time. And again, over time, you will find that you will attract the things that your brand speaks to. And when you're looking for a new job, look, when you find a fit, if you use the example Coke and Pepsi, right? If your brand is Pepsi and your whole organization is Coke, you're going to have a hard time. But when you find that one fit, it's going to be a really good fit. And so you may go through, a long part of your career just not compatible with the organization you're in. But then when you find that fit, you will really flourish because you've thought it through and spending the time. Now we have AI that can, interview you and help you develop, based on your answers, help you develop what your brand is. And so I think that goes a long way, no matter where you sit in the organization, towards making you successful.
This makes a lot of sense. I like how simple this is, that what I was terming anti-positioning is really just positioning, of is always focusing on letting people know in really small, simple ways, like you demonstrated, who you are, what you enjoy doing, and filtering that in, which automatically then filters all the other things out.
Yeah, I think it goes along with bringing your whole self to work. It's really, part of the same package.
Yes. And as good as you are, as successful as you've been at bringing yourself, whole self to work, I imagine you're not absolutely perfect at that. What is something you want that you don't have in your ability to bring your whole self to work?
Interesting. I would say I'm very fortunate in that I am able to bring a lot of what of who I am into, I'll say, my schedule, right? Maybe not work per se, but I'm able to weave in a lot of different things that I'd like to do. In terms of, I think, one of the things that I find challenging is just free time, right? And really able to do all the things I want to do. So it's maybe a bit of a cop-out answer, but if there was one thing, it's, and it's been interesting because, with the advances in AI and the capabilities that it brings, I find myself a lot more productive. But that hasn't led to reduced work hours. It's led to me doing more things in the same amount of time. And still, if you were to go back 5 years, my answer might be similar. Oh, I wish I could do more. And that's true now. I can do more. And I've just taken more on. And I still have that longing to do more, which I suppose is much better that than the other, I really want to do less. But I think that's, and I think we'll see as the technology improves and we get better at understanding how can we compartmentalize parts of our job to offload to automation. I think that will continue to happen. But, if you say, okay, I'm going to, wave a magic wand and give you the ability to write songs. Like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'd love to write a song about this, or I'd love to, well, wow, we can do that now. And I'm going to wave my magic wand and give you the ability to write books. Oh, okay. Oh, there's all these books I want to write. Right. And now you can do that, right? Or white papers or whatever it is. Right. And so I think that's the interesting thing when we think about sort of the future of AI plus human. How do we balance those two so that we as humans are adding the value and the perspective and the humanness to the work product, but we're producing more with our AI partners. So it's long-winded, kind of off-the-cuff answer, but that's sort of where I'm leaning.
Stuff is great. This is a question I've been exploring a lot with people. That AI right now doesn't seem like it's really creating. It's giving us sort of the average of everybody, everything it has consumed. And yet lots of people are using it to create. And so how do we balance leveraging AI for all of the insight that it can bring in lieu of asking 100 million different people that most of us aren't able to do, and yet still maintain the uniqueness that is ours? That's the reason people are coming to us to watch our plays, listen to our music, read our stories.
Yeah, so I'm particularly interested in this topic. I started a couple of months ago. I started an AI creativity podcast series for the sole purpose of putting some pressure on myself to go explore this every week and learn. And it's been interesting because we're not exactly going off the charts in terms of followers or views, but I have learned something personally every week in doing this. And so, as an example, when we think about AI and creativity, think back to let's take Mozart, right? And I don't think anyone would disagree. He is a creative person. But for him to create required a machine, which was the piano, which was far more complex in those days than AI is for us today. It's far more of a leap to a machine. But yet we don't question the piano at all as human augmented creativity. And I think so that this past week was really focused on how do you use the AI to trigger you through the day to think about things and observe things and apply them in new ways. And so to have it interrupt you in the morning to say, okay, take a look at your surroundings and what would you create, or what sticks out about what you see in front of you. And then it brings you back in the middle of the day. Okay, now you've reflecting on what you saw this morning. What would you approach differently now that you've halfway through your day? So it's not necessarily giving you the answer or drawing you a picture, but it's using it to prompt you, the human, to think in different ways. And I find it's fantastic for metaphors. And so if I think about, the example I always use here is if I'm designing a email spam filter feature, I say, okay, can you give me some examples from ancient Rome and from the financial industry about this feature? And in ancient Rome, it would say, well, aqueducts brought water to the city, and there were filters to keep out leaves and things like that. Okay, that's an interesting metaphor I probably wouldn't have thought of myself, right? And in the financial industry, some of the fraud detection work, things like that. Okay, that's probably, maybe I would have thought of those kind of things, but let me dive in a little bit more. Can you give me the history of who created the first financial fraud tools? And then you go back to the, 1870s and some of the things there. And so you have this access to a larger brain, but it requires you, the human, to poke at it where you need to. And I use the example, when people say AI is going to take our jobs, it's going to be smarter than we are. But, I could say in the next 30 seconds, I could talk to you about ancient Egypt, about car repair, about bridge construction, about paper making in ancient China, and weave them all together in making a point that humans can bounce around. Now, if an AI gave you those 5 things without any context, you'd be, "That's hallucinating. I have no idea what it's talking about. Why is it jumping around like that?" But as a human, I could pivot and talk about the make of your microphone and how good it is on audio pickup. And that's completely different than ancient Egypt, but I said those things 30 seconds apart, right? And so as humans, we have this ability to discern that AI just doesn't have yet. Now, maybe it gets there someday, but today, I think I always say the combination of human plus AI is going to be better than either one individually for a long time.
Yes, and I think forever, even if we reach a point where AI is embodied in a flesh and blood cyborg kind of experience, it still isn't having the same experience that we are of humans of being fully biological. And even if that does come to pass, it still is a different kind of intelligence than we are because it is grown differently. And so we're always going to have different perspectives and augment each other in ways that we can't do ourselves. And I really like your point here that the more we use AI to prompt ourselves versus giving us the answers, the more we're able to augment each other. This idea of prompting AI to prompt ourselves is really enlightening.
It's a great way. I mean, if you have to produce a white paper or really anything, have it interview you. I've set up my friend Calliope, who's my digital muse, done with voice. So I just talk to her, and she's got a set of council members that she can refer to. She's got a set of personas. She will act like there's Rebel Calliope who is my will use my own arguments against me, and having those discussions, and then asking for a summary or an overview, or hey, interview me about this idea I have, and then write a one pager or write a blog post, is really, really helpful for me. And it may not be right the first time. It may take a few things like, okay, that's pretty good, but can you make it do this, this, this? Or can you make sure to focus on this piece? Or, oh, I forgot this. But having those discussions and having, it's ChatGPT with memory. So she remembers previous conversations. So she'll say, well, back in December, you were saying this, but it sounds like that's changed. Why is that? And to have that sort of AI-based, you can call it therapist, coworker, muse, partner, whatever it is, collaborator, to really bounce ideas off of and have be questioned on your ideas or on your authenticity or your consistency is really helpful. Going into a difficult meeting, okay, simulate, I'm going into this meeting, I'm presenting about this. I know there's some people in the room who will disagree with what I'm going to present. Their points are this. Could you play the role and let me simulate the presentation and practice, and then give me feedback on how I did or what I could do differently? And I'll base your feedback on some of the great literature and history. Right? Things like that just, it's amazing. And it's using AI to make me a better human. I kind of feel like AI can do things that we as humans cannot do. It can do things that we do, but faster and sometimes better. And then the third category is it can teach us how to be better at the human things that only we can do. And I think that's the most intriguing use of AI in this human plus AI world.
And this circles nicely back to where we started, that these are all ways we can use AI to practice being imperfect in ways that will likely feel safer than just going out in a meeting and blurting these things out. And we can use it to refine our approach to telling our boss, telling the direct reports of that we have been imperfect or we have screwed up in this particular way.
Yeah. No, it's really great for that, and really it gives you, um, I've used it several times where I know I'm going into a uh, contemptuous meeting, and uh, being able to role play to understand, okay, here are the points that the other person is probably going to bring up, and having help and guidance to talk through those, um, or even to have the conversation early so that the points never come up, has been incredibly effective. It's like having a secret weapon, or a personal coach 24/7.
Indeed, and if everyone in that meeting is doing this to prepare for that meeting is going to be so much more productive.
Yes. Yep.
Ross, for people who would like to follow on your journey to use AI to become more human, what's the best way for them to do that?
So let's see. So there's a lot of different channels. I have an AI prompt of the day series on social media. Probably a short answer is I have a link tree, and it's just linktree/ROSSS42, as in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Uh, that has everything, but social media, then, as you mentioned, Future World Alliance, the AI and Creativity podcast is on Spotify and also on Substack. And then LinkedIn is always a good one. Again, ROSSS42. And pretty much everywhere else. Email is, I'll send you all these, I guess, so you can just put them on the screen. But yeah, thank you. It's and please, if I'd love to hear from you, please reach out. Always interested in feedback and your thoughts and how I can learn from you. So, Michael, thank you so much for having me today. This has been fantastic.
You're welcome, Ross. This has been an amazing conversation. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Ross and I would love to know, what are you doing to become a little more human today? Thanks, and have a great day.